Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. This Civ overview is going to be all about the Incas. The general perception is they're more situational than Aztecs and Mayans, with a weaker economy but a wider tech tree and lots of counter units. They're a bit of a tough one to categorize, because even though they're an infantry civilization, they don't have any overwhelming infantry bonuses, just lots of infantry to choose from. Their bonuses and unique units are a bit of an open question about how good they really are, so we'll have to crunch some numbers and run a few tests to see how they stack up. Let's check them out. The team bonus is that their farms are built 50% faster. Now, normal farms are built in 15 seconds for the typical civilization, or 12.5 seconds after treadmill crane. And we can see that the Incas build them in about 8 before treadmill and 7 after. So it appears they're built in roughly half the normal time. I didn't talk about it in my farming rates video, but this increases their overall farming collection by a small amount, since they spend more time farming and less time building. So how big is that effect on the Inca farming rate, you ask? Well, it depends on upgrades a bit, but for most of the game it's less than a 1% increase, even under ideal farm placement, which gives the biggest advantage. To visualize the effect size in Imperial Age, that means for every 200 farmers you have, it's like having one more due to the bonus. A fun fact is 200 farmers can normally sustain Hussar production from 18 stables. But can Incas sustain Hussar production with 19 stables once you factor in the farming bonus? The answer is Incas don't get stables. It's a trick question. But if they did, the answer would still be no. To be fair, the whole team benefits from the farming speed bonus, but suffice to say, Incas don't have a whole lot to offer their allies through the team bonus. So let's check out their Civ bonuses. The first bonus is that they start with a free llama. In terms of food and movement speed, the llama is the same as the sheep, though its line of sight is bigger, so you might want to use it to help you scout instead of eating it right away. If, on the other hand, you can't find your sheep right out of the gate, you can sacrifice it to keep your villagers collecting food without any delay. Regardless of when you decide to eat it, it is an extra bit of food that you get for free in the Dark Age. So on a typical map, you'll have the equivalent of 9 sheep instead of 8, which means where a typical civilization gets 712 food from their 8 sheep, Incas get 801 once you factor in decay. That extra free food can have a ripple effect, prolonging your berries or delaying the time until you have to build farms. The second bonus is that villagers are affected by blacksmith upgrades. What that means is every time you upgrade your infantry, you're also upgrading all of your villagers. That puts them, roughly speaking, on the same level as a swordsman line one age down, and a villager with all the feudal upgrades is about equal to a man-at-arms with no upgrades, for example, though they get a bit weaker relative to other military units as the game progresses. There isn't really a comparison with a Spanish villager though, in case you're wondering. Normally, a paladin in a post-imperial woodline, for example, can kill 10 villagers with about half of its health remaining. But with the Incas, they can successfully fight it off and keep 5 villagers alive. So unlike with nearly every other civilization, you can engage raiding Imperial Age units with your villagers in a pinch. Just for a quick comparison, Spanish lose 1 villager in that situation. Supremacy is kind of intense. One practical application of the Incan blacksmith techs could be to help you if you're doing a tower rush or you're trying to drop a castle. The third bonus is that houses support 10 population instead of the regular 5. This is really an early game bonus, since in a 200 population game you only end up saving about 500 wood max. To be fair, there's more than just the listed cost of a house to consider though, and taking a villager off a wood line to build a house nearby misses out on some time that villager could have been working. In the Dark Age, that's about 13 wood if done efficiently without any idle time, and in Post-Imperial it's about 17 wood. Looking at it that way, we could argue those houses aren't just costing you 25 wood, they're actually costing you up to 42 once you include the lost potential income and walking time, which brings the number of resources saved by the Incas up in the range of 800 wood over the course of a game. Now you might think of it as half as good as the Hun bonus, but Incas don't start out by missing 100 wood, so they're quite comparable in the Dark Age, though the Hun bonus is obviously much stronger in the long run, and particularly in the mid-game. The fourth bonus is that their buildings cost 15% less stone. That means it costs them 553 stone for a castle, which is nice for getting one up a bit sooner. You might think of it as a weaker Franks bonus, but for the Incas, there's other buildings that we have to consider as well. The towers are also only 106 stone, which is good for tower rushes and functions the same as a 17.6% increase in stone gathering rate. Combined with the potential to get villager upgrades, there's certainly an argument that an all-in Incan tower rush seems viable. They also have stone walls costing 4 stone thanks to some favorable rounding, and 26 stone for gates instead of 30. One thing that might get overlooked is their town centers also cost less, and for Incas it's only 85 stone instead of the regular 100. So that's the Incas bonuses. It's kind of a mixed bag of what are all essentially economy bonuses, with the almost unnoticeably improved farming rate, the extra llama, the hardy villagers, saving wood on houses, and saving stone. Basically, any strategy you're going for, from towers to archers to walling and fast castling, there's going to be something there that's helping you, however quietly in the background it might be. That certainly makes the Incas flexible, although the complete lack of military bonuses and cavalry means it becomes that much more important to make sure you're using your units in the situations they're meant for. One example of a unit where you want to keep its situational strength in mind is their unique unit, the Kamayuk. Just to take a quick overview of the unit, it's an infantry unit with melee damage, and at first glance the stats don't appear to be overwhelming. Low armor, pretty middle of the road HP and attack, movement speed somewhere between a swordsman unit and a pikeman. The one weird thing is this one range, which normal infantry units don't have, but we'll come back to that. The only attack bonus that I could find is against cavalry, which appears to be 8 against cavalry before the elite upgrade and 12 after. I played around with a few other cavalry types and found the bonus against camels was half that of the others. Unlike halberdiers, they don't have an especially large bonus against war elephants, which is something to keep in mind. So a natural question I wondered is, how do elite kamayuks compare to the halberdier against cavalry? Well, in a one-on-one comparison, the elite kamayuk does much better. That seems incredibly strange, since halberdiers are doing 37 attack thanks to 32 bonus damage against cavalry, while kamayuks are doing 19 attack after their extra 12. That's about half the damage, so why are they doing so much better? Watching the fights though, we can see what's going on. The halberdier dies after 4 hits, getting off 2 attacks, while the kamayuk takes 7 and manages to get in at least 7 of its own attacks, thanks to its higher armor, 20 more HP, and clearly faster attack rate. This isn't even a full demonstration of their strength either. That one range means they can reach through one tile and attack from the second row. This becomes much more significant as the size of the battles gets larger. It's really easy to see in mock battles like this that the kamayuks are much better against cavalry when they're massed, and they're able to hold the line while still getting a big chunk of their units involved. It's a pretty dramatic difference when compared to the halberdier. We even see a similar thing against champions, where even though a kamayuk loses one-on-one to a champion, in a large scrum of equally sized kamayuk and champion armies, the results are again pretty dramatic, and certainly a bit unexpected for me. A comparison with how halberdiers do in a similar situation is quite eye-opening. On the one hand, the kamayuk looks like a fairly average unit statistically, and its hidden bonuses aren't jaw-dropping, but their ability to just mash into piles of units and consistently dominate is flying a bit under the radar at the moment. In terms of possible weaknesses, it's pretty much the usual in terms of infantry, but also worth noting, unlike most infantry, they end up with 6 pierce armor, which is 2 more than a champion and helps increase their tankiness against arrows and gunpowder units a bit. Incas also have a second unique unit as well, this time from the archery range, and that's the Slinger. They seem to me like the cheaper Castle Age version of the hand cannoneer, with the same attack bonus versus infantry at a noticeably lower food and gold cost, but much lower base attack. In terms of effectiveness against infantry, it looks like the Slingers have a pretty decisive edge from long range, despite having 8 less attack, and it at least appears that they're firing about twice as fast, as well as with 100% accuracy. At point blank range, the hand cannoneers do a bit better than last time, but still nowhere near the efficiency of the faster firing Slingers. The Incan unique units are kind of blowing my mind right now, and they both seem significantly better than their counterparts. The slingers even have one more range than hand cannoneers in Imperial Age, since they're affected by archer range upgrades, including the thumb ring. Since the last update for African kingdoms, you also don't need a castle to build them for the archery range, so you don't even have to go out of your way to get access to them. Of course, just to touch on their weaknesses, unlike the hand cannoneer, they don't have a naturally high attack, so their pierce damage gets soaked up by elite skirmishers and heavy cavalry pretty easily. One thing to note is the slinger won't go down to pierce damage as quickly as you'd expect because of their 6 pierce armor, which is only 2 less than an elite skirmisher, but it will go down and you'll lose a lot of gold in the process. You'll want to protect your slingers with something anti-skirmisher and anti-siege like eagle warriors, which also counter cavalry a bit, but some kamayuks up front will make your slingers that much safer from cavalry. The biggest issue here is that a late game army composition like that is deceptively hard on your gold supply, and you're essentially trying to mass up fairly gold intensive units. It definitely helps to pad things out with some cheap trash units, which brings me to the Inca's first unique tech, the Andean Sling. This is the Inca's Castle Age tech, and it removes the minimum range for skirmishers and for slingers. Now normally those units can't attack anything that's within a couple of tiles, which makes them extremely vulnerable to cavalry, and they still are to an extent, but a little bit less so now. Genitours are also skirmishers, and we can see that it works on them as well. There's not too much to say about this one. It's a pretty cheap tech, and close range fighting shouldn't be an issue if your skirmishers are properly defended. I'd probably go up to the Imperial Age before getting it since it has some gold in the price tag, but it really depends on what your army composition is. The second unique tech is Couriers. This was recently changed from a 10% speed increase for Eagle Warriors to now being +1 melee and +2 pierce armor for kamayuks, slingers, and eagles. Basically, it helps the gold costing units that you'll probably be incorporating in your armies at one point or another as counters, so this is a good one to pick up before you throw away too many units. It's quite cheap as well considering its effect, and it brings the +4 pierce armor from the blacksmith right up to +6 for all of those units. The end result is your elite Eagle Warriors have a vaguely Huskarl-like 10 pierce armor. So that's the Inca unique units and techs. Both of their unique units surprised me quite a bit as being deceptively strong and extremely specialized towards a particular unit type and countering. I'm going to take a look at that aspect of the Incas a bit deeper by doing a quick survey of their tech tree. As always, I'll start with the archers. The latest update gave them access to Thumb Ring, which is a pretty strong boost, and I'd say they have an above average archer rush because of the housing bonus and the free llama. In the late game, they have fully upgraded elite skirmishers with no minimum range, and their unique slinger unit, which seems to perform in tests at least as well as hand cannoneers against infantry in the post-Imperial Age, and is, I think, the best anti-infantry unit in Castle Age period. Overall, they have some very strong archer options, and I'd give them an A-. Next, let's take a look at the infantry. A couple of changes in the latest rebalance. First, the Eagle Warrior upgrade is now 200 food and 200 gold instead of 300 food and 200 gold. The Eagle Warrior is also a bit faster, and the Eagle Scout is now available in the Feudal Age. Combined with the Couriers tech now giving them more armor, the Eagle line is pretty solid, though probably still weaker than the Aztec and Mayan ones. In terms of the number of available units and techs, they definitely have the most complete tech tree, and I was also really impressed with the kamayuks in the testing. Overall, I'd give them an A- for infantry as well. The only thing I feel is missing is some kind of military bonus, because the champions and halberdiers are pretty standard. Now normally I would follow this by talking a bit about cavalry, but obviously they don't have any cavalry. I will point out though that I'm not 100% sold on Eagle Warriors being a perfect replacement, since they cost 50 gold per unit. I think the lack of cavalry combined with an infantry focus gives the Incas a bit of an exploitable weakness to siege. So rather than grade them, we'll just say it's not applicable, but it's certainly a notable thing for the Incas to be missing. Next up is siege. I like the siege engineers, but other than that, things here are looking pretty middle of the road. Overall, it's a solid B for siege. Looking at the navy now, the early game is okay, again thanks to the llama and the housing bonus giving a nice early boost. It's probably a B for early game water control, but in the late game they trail off a little bit, missing cannon galleons entirely and the heavy demolition ship, along with no water bonuses or economy boost. I'd have to give them a C+ late game for navy, so it's a B- for water overall once we average those two together. Looking at the monks now, the last update did change them a little bit, and they now have block printing, I'd say they have all of the important stuff, but there's also nothing that sets them apart here. It's a pretty solid monk tree, and I'd give them a B+. I feel like a gold bonus would have helped this out a lot. Now let's take a look at their defenses. Since the last update, they now have keeps. There's still no bombard tower, but that stone bonus is a big help. Between that, all of their counter units, and abnormally strong villagers, they're a good choice for a defensive-minded player, and I'd give them an A for defenses. In fact, I'd be more comfortable calling them a defensive civilization than an infantry one. Taking a look now at the economy, it's a very open tech tree, and in the latest update they even added guilds. And there's also a lot of economy civ bonuses of varying significance. Taken all together, I'd give them a B+ for economy. Overall, the Incas surprised me quite a bit, and their unique unit seems to be a lot better than I expected. They get a lot of powerful counter units, and they work well for a defensive-minded player who likes to wall and boom. I get a similar feeling to the Byzantines in their ability to counter all of the major unit types in multiple ways, though I would say both of those civilizations accomplish this in a different way. On the other hand, a lot of the key power units that some civilizations get, like the Paladins, Siege Onager, Bombard Cannon, even Bombard Tower, aren't there. Instead, you have to rely on your variety of units and your micromanagement to get favorable unit matchups with your Kamayuks, Slingers, and Eagle Warriors. My only concern with that is those are all units that cost gold, and once the gold is gone, you're left with pretty generic halberdiers, some good elite skirmishers, but no hussars or any powerful late game economy bonus. If you're on the other side and you're playing against the Incas, you'll often find it effective to stall against them by making a lot of siege and some champions to protect them from Eagle Warriors. So that's all for this one, and hopefully you at least have a few more ideas about either playing them now or playing against them now than you did at the start of the video. As always, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.